Hey everybody, welcome to AFR's Corner with me, AFR. We're brought to you by the Spurs Up Show. If you're not already, make sure you are following the Spurs Up Show on social media. That's just at the Spurs Up Show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And now make sure you're subscribing on YouTube as well so you can catch videos like this. The Spurs Up Show is brought to you by BetMyBookie. If you go to betmybookie.ag and use promo code SPURSUP, you'll get a 50% bonus on your deposit. So that means if you deposit $100, you'll get 50 free bucks. So you have $150 in your BetMyBookie account, and you've had only spent $100. So basically, if you guys don't know who I am, my name is Alex Reynolds. I go by AFR. You may have seen some of my work previously if you followed Garnet and Black Attack in the past couple of years. I covered the recruiting class of 18 pretty heavily with. And I also covered the 2018 draft with the Panthers Wire pretty intensive. Now I spend most of my mornings playing video games on Twitch, but I'm a huge Gamecock fan. I went to the University of South Carolina from 2011 to 2015, and I've been friends with Chris for a little over a year now. And I thought this was a great opportunity to talk about something I love and make content for the Gamecock fans, which are honestly the best fans of the. On this show, we're going to do this once a week. We'll have this every Thursday. To begin with, we're going to talk about basketball pretty exclusively until the basketball season isn't over, and then we'll transition maybe into some baseball, maybe some football recruiting. That's kind of to be determined right now. Me and Chris will talk about that when the time comes, but for now, this is pretty much going to be a basketball show. So if you like basketball, we'll mostly be covering the men's team, but I'm sure we'll talk about some women's basketball too if they start doing some. Today's episode, we're going to talk mostly about our great victories over Florida and Mississippi State, and then we'll look forward just a tad to Missouri and Vanderbilt. So first off, Florida, just a typical classic USC-Florida match. Two brothers just going at it. They know each other. They know how they're going to play. You almost feel like you're not even watching a basketball game. It's a backyard brawl. They're going to the free throw line every drive. I loved it. A lot of people say it's boring. I thought it was intense and just completely entertaining. First half was kind of a mess, especially from South Carolina's standpoint. Just a bunch of turnovers, but they just managed to do enough to kind of hang around. Went on a run at the end of the half to kind of bring it up close. But then, going at the second, let Florida go on a run and ended up being down 12, and then that's when everything kind of came. Defense came together. Defensive rotations, help was showing up at the rim. Shots started falling. Chris Silva was making big plays. Hassani Gravett was making big plays, and then really it all just came down to a Hail Mary pass at the end by Felipe Alcide, which we all know. We've all seen it. We all know about it, and it was just amazing. I don't know how they had two men on Chris Silva and both of them stepped forward and just let the ball go over their heads. But overall, just I don't want to say a complete game. We had 22 turnovers, so you really can't gloss over that, but a really gutsy performance. And it kind of showed that this team is starting to get that South Carolina mentality that we need to be a good basketball team. We're gonna be gritty. We're gonna get to the free throw line. We're gonna drive to the hoop, and we're gonna play some darn good defense. And that's what we saw. And there was really nothing leading up to conference play that made us know that was what we were going to see. So it was really nice to see. Chris Silva finally started to come into form with 18 points, going 8 of 9 from free throws, and 3 blocks as well. Kosar actually has quietly started to show his value, which we all saw a lot more against Mississippi State. But he had 4 offensive rebounds, and he just continues to do the small things right. He's always solid on defense. He's good around the board. There's a reason he plays the minutes. And then Hassani Gravett is just he's really growing into his own player, kind of in that Frank Booker role that we saw last year. Not in terms of what he can do on the court, but just having that veteran presence coming off the bench. He had 22 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and a block. So that's just a complete game. Frank Martin keeps talking about how much Hassani has grown up, and I think that just has a lot to do with his attitude and how he approaches the game. He's got that right mindset of what it takes to succeed, and he's willing to put the effort in on and off the court. Moving forward to Mississippi State, it's more of what I would call a complete game from start to finish. Defensive rotations were on point. help showing up at the rim is something we have not really seen a lot this season, and just the guys being in communication and knowing when to rotate on defense and provide help when needed is just huge, and it just shows that they're finally understanding Frank Martin's system. Mike Kotsar, I don't know what we need to say about Mike Kotsar. I mean, there's a lot of people who can't stand him. I know he's had a lot of issues on the offensive side of the ball, especially with getting his shots to fall. But like I just said a minute ago, he does all the small things that Frank Martin asks for. And now it seems like he's finally getting the confidence in his shot. I mean, just listen to this stat line. It's Mississippi State. He had 25 points, 9 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds, and a block playing 30 minutes. You can't ask more. And this is kind of what we always thought Mike Kotsar and Chris Silva were gonna be. We always knew Chris Silva was gonna be that guy. Teams are gonna want to double team. We thought Mike Kotsar was good enough to really feed and thrive off of that. And up until this point, we haven't quite seen it. Like I said, he's been solid. He's provided value to the team, but he's really struggled to get that plus value and get those shots to fall. And if he maintains his confidence in his shot, that 1-2 punch with him and Chris Silva is going to be something the SEC is going to be very. AJ Lawson's in a bit of a tough streak, but he had a pretty cool redemption story against Mississippi State. He really had a rough game, kind of on both ends of the court. Frank Martin has expressed, pretty plainly he hasn't been too happy with the freshman's play. So, but then at the end of the game, leading before overtime, Frank Martin dialed up a play for him and he sunk a jumper to help us tie up the score and take it to overtime. Then in overtime, he completely shut down Q Weather, and he sealed the win for us with that steal and that dunk. So kind of a cool redemption story with AJ Lawson, and he's just someone, he needs to find his footing, and he's gonna be fine. But as long as Frank Martin doesn't lose confidence in him and he doesn't lose confidence in himself, we're gonna see lots more great things from AJ Lawson, which I think we all know. Mississippi State just could not get into a rhythm, and their guards, which are some of the best in the SEC, were I don't want to say necessarily held in check, but held in moderation. Nobody was allowed to take, and they got almost no production for their bench, which is huge, especially when we have somebody like Hassani Gravett who continues to provide plus value off the. Chris Silva didn't have a mammoth game, but his presence was felt again almost the entire time. He finished with 11 points, 12 rebounds, 4 on the offensive side. So that just goes to show how big he was around the boards. And he also had 4 assists, which he did a great job moving the ball once he got in double teams, which we've seen. I feel like a lot of times we've seen Chris Silva get into those double teams and he kind of shuts down. He doesn't know quite what to do, and he just waits until he sees an outlet out by the 3-point line. Against Mississippi State, he looked confident. He looked comfortable. He saw people driving towards the rim, and he provided an outlet. And he ended up with 4 assists. He had 3 blocks, great on defense, played 30 minutes. And then Hassani Gravett, again, coming off the bench, providing value with 17 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal in 34 minutes play. He played more than Chris Silva and Mike Kotsar, I'm pretty sure, against Mississippi State and against Florida. So that just shows how important he is coming off the bench. And it's kind of pretty awesome how he's accepted that role, especially when, I don't want to say he has an attitude problem, but we know him and Frank Martin have butted heads in the past. So it's pretty cool that he's accepted that he's not necessarily going to be a starter on this team right now, but he really provides an important role, and he has to be good for this team to be good. My biggest takeaway from these 2 games is that Frank Martin is finally finding his rotation and just the guys that he trusts. We really only played a 7-man rotation, both against Mississippi State and against Florida. I think 9 people technically played against Florida and 8 technically played against Mississippi State, but I think that was for a combined of about 6 and 4 minutes. So Evan Hinson hasn't quite found his place on the court yet, and Alonzo Frink is still I'm not sure if he's coming back from injury or he's just still a liability at defense at this point. So they haven't quite worked their way into the rotation, and we're really doing good things with 7 guys playing a lot of minutes. And that means we're having people like Philippe Hasse providing. Chris Silva has finally found himself. And my kind of hot take is it Chris Silva who's fixed, or Is it Frank Martin who's fixed? Frank Martin has said several times that he messed up Chris Silva. He put too much pressure on him. He was asking him to do things that he wasn't necessarily comfortable with, and it was messing up him doing the things he was comfortable with. And I think we all saw that Chris Silva just didn't seem there. And now he finally is. So I'm not sure if we want to say Chris Silva's fixed or Frank Martin is finally adapting to the personalities on his team instead of making the personalities on his team adapt to him, which I think is a sign of a good coach. Hassani Gravett has arrived. He's finally the player we've always needed him to be. I think he struggled last season being asked to be a true point guard. He can play off ball this year. He doesn't have to. He's a leader, but he doesn't have to put the team on his back per se. He can play a role and fulfill that role well. He's got confidence right now. He's showing off his athleticism with something he wasn't able to do as well on the. So we're seeing a lot of good things out of Hassani Gravett right now. And in order for this team to be good, we're going to have to keep seeing them because he just provides such a crucial role off the bench, which is important when you're really only playing 7 guys. Like we said, Mike Kotsar is coming into his own as well. He's just really, I think he's starting to get that confidence in his shot. And I don't know if his game is rubbing off on Philippe Hasse, but we're also starting to see that he can provide some value as well, even though he struggles with a lot of things we need to see for him to succeed on a Frank Martin team. You know, he needs to be more physical. He needs to have a bigger presence around the rim. He needs to learn how to drive the ball. But he's showing him provide some value. He's getting rebounds. He's getting offensive boards, which is super important. He's moving his feet better on defense. So we're starting to see that Hasse can also provide a role, which was something I think we were all questioning about for a while. If this team would be okay if he had to play meaningful minutes. And right now he's playing meaningful minutes and valuable meaningful minutes. And we obviously would say the same for Mike Kotsar, who's playing extremely well right now. We need to see him to continue to play at a high level and feed off of the attention that Chris Silva gets. That is going to be crucial for this team moving down the stretch in conference play. Our 2 hot freshmen that we like to talk about, AJ Lawson and Keyshawn Bryant, neither of them had outstanding games in the past two games, but they showed up in big moments. They just continue to show their potential. AJ Lawson's going through a bit of a rough patch. I kind of compare it to Justin Minaya last year, who in non-conference play just was really promising, showed a lot of good things, and then conference play started and just kind of lost his shot a little bit, lost a little bit of confidence, and we all knew he was going to be fine. Frank Martin continued to play him, and then a few weeks into conference play, he was fine. And I think we're kind of seeing the same thing with AJ Lawson right now. The competition is bumped up. He's a smaller guard, so he's getting used to the physicality of the SEC play. And once he does, I think he's going to be fine. And Keyshawn Bryant, I mean, he's amazing. He's literally still learning how to play the game of basketball. We can finally say he's not a liability on the defensive end of the court, which is huge, and I think is exemplified in the amount of minutes he's playing. He's playing about 25 minutes a game right now. He did have 7 turnovers against Florida, which is just it can't happen. But it's just like we said, he's literally learning how to play the thing. So lots of good things to come down the road for both of them. Really, the only negative point I have to take away from these 2 first conference games was the 3-point D, and I guess technically the turnovers against Florida, but then we came back against Mississippi State and only had 12 turnovers. So I think that was kind of more of an anomaly than anything else, and we're going to see some tighter, cleaner play moving forward. But the 3-point defense can be cleaned up, and again, that kind of comes with Frank Martin's system. He'd rather let people beat him from behind the arc than beat him at the rim, which I don't necessarily disagree with. It's much harder to shoot consistently from back there, but we seem to have a habit of letting people get open at big moments where it's a tight point margin, and that 3-point play really makes a big swing. So that's just something I'd like to see our players get out to the line a little bit faster, just stay a little bit tighter in front of their men. Moving forward, on Saturday, we've got Missouri coming off a tough loss to a good Tennessee team. And then on Wednesday, we've got Vanderbilt, which could very well be 0-3 in conference play and desperate for an SEC win by then. They've already lost to Ole Miss and Georgia, and then they're playing Kentucky this weekend. So even if they're 0-3, that's a game that they're going to be desperate for a conference win, so it could be very tough, and Vanderbilt's a good team. keys to success for these next 2 games. Really, I wanted to see if this team is going to, if they play to their opponents. I'm wondering if, obviously we stepped up to our opponents in Florida and Mississippi State, and I think we saw in non-conference that we really played down to competition a few times. So I want to see this team keep playing at a consistent level, a high level. I want them to stay aggressive. I want them to continue getting to the free throw line, driving, and actually they need to get to the free throw line more. Chris Silva didn't have any free throw shots against Mississippi State after going 8 of 9 against Florida. Chris Silva needs to continue just to be comfortable, do his thing, eat up attention around the rim, and then let Mike Kotsar benefit. We really need to continue to see good things out of Asani Gravett. If his play dips off, that's going to be really noticeable, especially with him and Felipe Haase really being the only 2 people coming off the bench right now until Justin Minaya is healed and Evan Hinton and Alonzo Frank really get a hold of Frank Martin's system and aren't liabilities on defense or turning the ball over or committing personal fouls at Evan Hinton's. Gravett really just provides a crucial role, and he's one of our top scorers, if not our top scorer, over the past 2. We really saw against Mississippi State what it means when you can have firepower coming off. And what that really means when you're playing a team where their starting 5 may be more talented than yours, but when you have the depth advantage, it goes a long way over the course of a 40-minute game. And lastly, and most importantly, and I think it's got to be the question on everybody's mind, are we going to see consistent basketball play out of this Gamecocks squad? We didn't see it at all in non-conference. There was games where it looked like we could compete with any team in the SEC, and then there was other games where it looked like we could lose to any team in the country, a la Stony Brook. So we really just moving forward, we need to see consistent play. My hopes aren't up too high as far as what to expect moving forward into these next 2 games. I want to see more of the same, the aggressive attitude. We hope the shots keep falling, but really we just need to see the good play on defense, and that'll lead to good play on offense. And that's it for the first episode of AFR's Corner. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to the Spurs Up Show down below and follow them on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Spurs Up Show. If you'd like to hear more from me, you probably don't, but if you do, you can follow me at AFRisme on Twitter and Instagram. I have a YouTube channel as well, but it's mostly just video game stuff, so you might not be too interested in that. If you'd like to check out my Twitch stream, I stream every morning at 7 a.m. till around noon, and we will have the next episode of AFR's Corner coming to you next Thursday. Look forward to talking to you guys then. Hope you guys have a great week. Spurs up.